It's Hugh's news. It's Hugh's news. Hugh Grant news. It's Hugh's news.
Hello and welcome to Hugh's News, a Taking Hugh for Granted production. We're here, we're always here. It's me and my good man Oscar, my fellow horse and hound correspondent. How are you doing today, Oscar?
I'm doing very well, Diggs. I'm doing very well. It's a cloudy, grey November day, but your face always cheers me up.
Oh, Oscar, stop it. And you can see my face today because we're also on YouTube. Usually we're part of Taking Hugh for Granted, a podcast which watches and reviews all of Hugh Grant's output. So hello there, Hugh Grant fans, you found us. And sometimes on Hugh's News, we keep you up to date with all the Hugh Grant news, any tweets that he's done, any announcements of any new shows that he's doing. And today we're going to talk about episodes 4 and 5 of The Undoing. And also, just before that though, Hugh Grant's appearance in a couple of late night TV shows, namely Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, Graham Norton. Have you enjoyed having Hugh Grant back on our screens, Oscar?
Of course, Diggory. I mean, he seems to be, every time I open up YouTube, I have, you know how you have recommended? I get about 6 different Hugh Grant recommendations, and I've been plowing through them. I watched the Graham Norton show on Friday evening. I have to say, Hugh is at his best grumpy self, isn't he, on these TV shows? He does not give a shit anymore about what other people think about him.
No, he really doesn't. Yeah, he's been great, and there's been some real revelations, so we say. I feel like everyone seems to have jumped on the back of. He told Stephen Colbert that he had COVID at the beginning of just before things really started kicking off around February, March time. And Hugh Grant said that he was sniffing people. He had the urge to sniff people's armpits to check if he could smell. And he ended up spraying his wife's Chanel No. 5 in his face to see if he could smell it. He couldn't smell it, but he did blind himself. And that's what the papers seem to run with as well. They all seem to comment on that.
They did, but there was something that we preferred, wasn't there, to that headline?
Yes. Well, obviously, during lockdown, he spent a lot of time with his kids. And so he's been getting very familiar with his
touchy-feely, shall we say?
Yes, not with his kids, but with his, I believe, his daughter's Barbie dolls. He's been getting very, very familiar with those, making them do lots of things together, and basically making Barbie porn. Oddly, the press didn't seem to pick up on that, but I found that brilliant. I can't wait to see it. We've got sidetracked, but it's been great to see him back on our screens. He did a great job on Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, Graham Norton. He did a great job. He was charming. He was funny. He was great. But let's talk about elsewhere where he's been on TV. He's been on The Undoing for HBO. We're going to talk today about episodes 4 and 5. We've spoken already about episodes 1, 2, and 3. So if you're listening to us on our Taking You for Granted podcast feed, obviously go back and check those out if you haven't heard them already. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello again. What do you think of my bookcase? I feel like whenever I have Zoom calls and Zoom meetings here, everyone always talks about my bookcase and goes, "Oh, you're just like the people on BBC News who come on." And there's that. Have you seen that Oscar, the Twitter account, rate my bookcase? And they rate all these academics who go on BBC News and stuff, and it's like they're rating their bookcase on Zoom calls.
I haven't seen it. I mean, the big difference here, Diggory, is that most academics who have the bookcase, they probably read most of the books on the bookcase. I reckon you've read about one of all those books over there.
Well, obviously, we all know the one I've read. I'm going to get it out once again. I've read Hugh, the unofficial and unauthorized biography of Hugh Grant by Dan Whitehead. So thanks again, Dan, for writing that fantastic book.
Well, talking about, books and stuff, and Christmas is coming up pretty soon. I'm planning it. I'm this week I've been sort of thinking about Christmas presents, and you're definitely on the list, Diggory.
Oh.
What kind of Hugh memorabilia can I come up with for Christmas?
Well, my siblings have been asking me, what do you want? And I really can't look beyond a Hugh Grant cutout. I really would like a life-size Hugh Grant cutout, but I don't know how to say to them, guys, can you? Because they're quite expensive. Cardboard
3D
cutouts.
printer.
Oh my god! Imagine a 3D. You know, I know a guy with a 3D printer, and he bought it as a hobby, and I was like, "Isn't that expensive?" And he was like, "Yeah," but he said if he needs to like if he's lost a nut or a bolt, let's say on like an oven or some sort of mechanical appliance, he doesn't go out and buy the nut or bolt to replace it. He fucking 3D prints it, which is actually really cool, but really nerdy as well. Anyway,
let's talk about the matter of hand here.
Let's talk about the matter at hand. So episode 4, do you have any thoughts and opinions for me on episode 4 of The Undoing? We just to remind you, we just come off the back of, at the end of episode 3, Nicole Kidman had been seen and spotted on a CCTV camera walking around within the radius a block away from where this woman had been bludgeoned to death. That's where we were left. That's how episode 4 started. Any thoughts on episode 4?
I mean, to be honest, Diggory, my overriding thought from episode 4 was we were left very much wanting. I thought it was the worst episode so far. There were a few moments that were great, particularly Hugh's interview at the end of the episode, where he goes on television. His lawyer thinks it would be a good idea. That classic moment to get the people to see that you're actually not a bad guy. Obviously Hugh's charm is working wonders here. But overall, I was left frustrated by the episode because there weren't many moments that really got me amped up. I was left wondering what the direction of the episode was and where we were being led, and there was a lot more. There was just a lot of stuff unanswered and not many questions. Not many pressing questions in my head that I really wanted to find out. So, yeah. Having said that, though, my opinions have changed in episode 5, which was an absolute stonker. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that. How about yourself? What do you think of episode 4?
Well, I think you make a great point about the sort of where's the direction of this program going? Because the reason I mentioned the end of episode 3 is because Nicole Kidman is seen at the near the scene of the crime, where near where her husband's lover has been bludgeoned to death. You think, oh my god, this is such a big moment. And episode 4 opens and basically the police go, oh yeah, but we, the timings don't quite work out, so we're not going to think about you as a suspect. And you go, well, that was a cliffhanger.
What was the bloody point?
What was the bloody point? That was rubbish. So I thought that episode 4 would be Nicole Kidman's now a suspect. Well, she's not. And then episode 4 ends, like you say, with Hugh Grant going, they go, do you think you know who killed her? And he goes, yes, I do. And you go, oh, okay, who's it going to be? And episode 5 starts, and there's no talk really about who it's going to be. I thought that was leading to episode 5 being all about how Nicole... I think he thinks Nicole did it. What do you think? I thought that was what that was.
That was exactly... I mean, I think most people, that was the logical conclusion, and that was what I was waiting for. And I was actually really looking forward to that as well, just because the whole series has been focused on Nicole breathing heavily and Nicole staring into the distance at something or crying. So it's all about her and all in her head. So I was expecting suddenly this moment where Hugh turns on Nicole and all the focus is on her and it all just comes crumbling down. But that didn't happen.
Well, just before we move on to episode 5, it's interesting to remember that when Hugh Grant was approached for the role, they only had written 4 scripts. So what we've seen up to episode 4 will have been what Hugh was given. Pretty much. So I'm sure there may have been some changes here and there. And that's what got him hooked. And that's probably, the beginning of what got him to do the show. I mean, based on those 4 episodes, he said he was hooked reading the script. And I feel like that cliffhanger, it did hook me. I was like, right, episode 5 is going to be sick because Hugh Grant has been trying to latch onto Nicole and latch onto the family. The whole of episode 4 was him holding, Donald Sutherland, her dad, was fuming when Hugh Grant was constantly holding her hand the whole time when he came out from bail. When she was in the hospital because she fell over and he was checking her eyes with his little torch and stuff and being all cute and stuff. that was amazing. He was like really latching onto her, and then at the end of the episode to be like, I think I know who did it, and I think it was my wife. Like, that's basically what he was saying. I thought episode 5 is gonna be amazing. It's gonna be this whole like those two at war with each other, and I'm telling you, it's been none of that. So I just wonder whether, what Hugh has seen so far, and whether maybe it would have been enough for you, Oscar, to have taken the role if you were Hugh, based on just those 4 episodes. Maybe it's a leading question from me, but
yeah, it sounds to me like you're saying that you haven't been as convinced by the show in general as perhaps you were hoping.
I wonder whether maybe I'm coming at it with the wrong mindset, but I sort of find myself for 50 minutes at least a lot, for 50 minutes sat there going, well, this is very pleasant. It's shot very well. It's well acted. The scenes are written in a completely, fine way, but I'm not on the edge of my seat in every scene. I'm not like, oh, these two characters are talking about this thing and this is about to happen and oh my God. Every time I felt like that, the show's under-delivered, and that is no more so seen than end of episode 4 when Hugh goes, I think it's Nicole Kidman. Like, basically says, I think it's Nicole Kidman. And you're like, oh my God, he thinks it's his wife. He's going to turn this whole thing around on her and save his own back and be a bastard. And none of that really has happened in episode 5. So
I agree with you. I mean, so I feel like the ending of episode 5 was really the first moment where I got chills. I got tingles. I was like, holy shit, this is kicking off. And like, I was just, I was jumping up and I was like, oh my God. That was really, like you said, the first moment in the whole series almost, where I was like, well, apart from the end of episode 3 where we see Grace walking along the road. But you're right, that there is something just a little bit missing, and I don't want to sort of be a pessimist about the show or anything. And maybe it's because we're in this culture where you can just watch the next episode on Netflix, or, and you have to wait a whole week. But there does seem to be a lot of build up and not quite enough of a deliverance in terms of the amount of build up doesn't justify what we're getting, the consequence of that build up.
Well, you're listening to Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted on the radio. Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted. Oh, the podcast show.
But let's talk then. I think there's 2 things in episode 5 that we want to talk about. And obviously we'll talk about the ending, which we've sort of referenced a lot. But there's another big moment. Hugh has, I think it was episode 1 or 2, Henry, speaking of Henry, really wants a dog. And Nicole Kidman has been like, look, the reason we can't get a dog is Hugh Grant accidentally was looking after the dog. It ran away. It got run over. And he's now doesn't want to have a dog anymore. It's a real childhood trauma that's really fucked him up. And this all comes to a head. And Nicole's like, I told Noah about it. Noah Jupe, aka Henry. And Hugh's like, I didn't tell you the truth. It wasn't the family dog. It was my fucking sister that died under my watch. What did you think of that? Because you said, what did you think of that?
I mean, it came out of nowhere, really. I mean, the main message, I guess, of that is the proof that Hugh's character is just he's spinning lies left, right, and center. He cannot be trusted, and he puts on this brilliant act. And I think actually that moment was perhaps some of his best acting in the entire series so far, where he's sort of crying, he can barely talk, and I was like, this is some Academy Award stuff here. But yeah, and then we find out from Nicole into like chats with Hugh's mum, who Hugh hasn't spoken to his parents in years, and Hugh's mum is basically like, he didn't have any grief, he didn't feel any guilt, and it was his fault that the daughter died, which is a little bit strong that maybe it wasn't his fault. But again, it's like, it is just putting into your head, Hugh's done it. And you're right. The interesting thing about this episode is that we went into it thinking that this is the episode that Nicole Kidman was going to be, put on the dock and accused of being the murderer. But in many ways, it's actually gone back to sort of episode 1 and 2, where Hugh is the main suspect, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's no more so. There's so many things there that I want to pick you up on, and I'll pick you up on one because it's very interesting what you said. Hugh can't be trusted, and he's spinning a web of web of lies. I mean, at this point, do you think that? I mean, do you think then he's done it? Is he the bad guy? I mean, because there's no more so big lie than we're being shown this hammer that was potentially a replica of the hammer that was used to batter and bludgeon this woman to death. Yeah, 11 times. I feel like the number's changed, but anyway, 11 times in her face. She's unrecognizable to her husband. He can't identify the body. That's how badly beaten this woman is.
Yeah.
And, well, at the end of the episode, Nicole Kidman, what the fuck? Why was she in there? Oh, yeah, she was tidying up Henry's room, right? Something like that?
Tidying up Henry's room, yeah. Quickly, sort of, we get a nice little shot of Hugh Grant in his North Face jacket for the 5th episode in a row. He's beady-eyed amongst you. And then, sort of rummaging through his stuff. And then she goes into the wardrobe, picks out the violin case, opens the violin case, and what do we find inside, Diggs?
A replica of the hammer, potentially the murder weapon.
Oh my. and then their eyes. Nicole has got. This is the ultimate stare of her. So there's many stares in this series of her just like looking. But she looks at Noah, and Noah's like in his bed, Henry, and he's like, and then suddenly he opens his eyes, and it's just like, ah!
Yeah, because he's been asleep, and then suddenly just at the right moment, he opens his eyes, and they're just like giving each other this like owl stare. Yeah. I have to comment, I can't not at this point as well. Nicole Kidman, I do feel bad for her because she's a brilliant actor and all these things, but because of the plastic surgery she's had, her acting range is slightly narrowed in that she can't furrow her brow really. She has no her forehead doesn't move. So in this moments like that where she's trying to show some emotion, all she can do is just widen her eyes because everything else is completely static and still. And I think if you watch this TV program and notice that, it really is quite off-putting because you have to just sort of guess at what's going on with her face. Anyway, I feel like an arsehole for saying that, but anyway, that was
You are an arsehole, Digger. You are.
I know, but that was a great moment for it because her and her son were pulling the same face, just staring at each other like that. But what do you think about that then? I mean, now's the time to ask you, do you think that is incriminating enough for Hugh? And if not, who do you think has done it? Because episode 6 is next episode.
There's a lot of questions running through your brain, isn't there? Firstly, how is the child implicated? Has Hugh because it's clear that Henry he adores his dad. Like he's got tunnel vision for how great Hugh is, which like we all do.
That's why we love Noah Jupe on this podcast. Noah Jupe's a big lad. I love that guy.
So yeah, is the kid incriminated here? Has Hugh basically gone, look, kid, I got this weapon, and you're not going to tell anyone about it? Maybe has Hugh planted it? Possibly. Has the kid on his own accord gone over to the house and just bludgeoned this woman to death?
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, Noah Jupe is now suspect number one, public enemy number one.
Nothing's off the table here, to be honest. I mean, something I keep on seeing online on Twitter. People have their suspicions up about the blonde hair friend of Nicole Kidman because she's just in this program. She's a little bit nuts. Many people think that she is the second person that Hugh had an affair with, and we know that she was hired by Hugh as her lawyer in I think when he left the hospital. So there's a connection there. Is there a reason why she'd have motive? She she was jealous of the fact of Eleanor. There is potentially there, isn't it?
Yo, boy, because I was about to say, I was going to be like, oh, let's compare it to our original ideas of who we thought it was. And I remember back in when we reviewed episode 1, I was like, I think the blonde lady has something to do with it. Just because I felt like she was this, mum, something about her
Just mum.
Yeah, exactly. She was this bloody mum, and I hate mums. Something felt off with her. And it's so now, because I was about to laugh at myself for that, but that's a good point. Like, she is in it a lot, and she is, if she has these ties to Hugh, perhaps there's something. And also, this is my big thing, right? I think I've worked out what's going on with the hammer. So Noah does his, violining at school. Someone could have taken his violin out and swapped it with the hammer, perhaps, at school. Who has access to the school? The dad of, the bludgeoned woman's husband. I can't remember his name in the show. Fernando, thank you. And this woman that we're talking about, the blonde-haired lady. So both people could have planted it. And if it's not them, then it has to be Noah Jupe. The 11-year-old has killed her. It must be. I still think it could be Nicole Kidman, though.
Look over there. Hugh Grant's in a pret. Look over there. He's holding a baguette.
I do have to put you on the spot, Oscar. I need you to give me a name. Right here, right now, you need to give me a name. And then I'll do the same, to be fair, and I'll have a little think about it. I think, because I want us both to, look, we want to play it safe, but I think we both need to put our money where our mouth is and give who we think it's going to be now, and then we can see next episode if we're right.
You know what? For some reason, I still want to just stick with the grandpa. I
Really?
think he's got less and less implicated now, and I know that's the case. But I think he's just in the wings there, and he's a weird dude. He's way too rich. He's a cocksucker, as he keeps on saying in the show.
Yeah,
which is weird.
yeah.
So I'm going to stick with my guns from episode 1. Sticking with my guns.
I love
How about
that.
you?
Well,
Tell me now.
Do you know what? I was because even with my theories about who has access to the school to swap the hammer out, whatever, it's either, I don't think it's the husband, and I don't think. So for me, it's either Nicole Kidman or the blonde lady.
You said one name, Diggory. You said
one
name.
So I'm going to do exactly what you did, shove Nicole out the way, and it's going to be the bloody blonde woman. There are going to be people listening to this who watch the show and be like, how the hell have they picked the two most inconsequential characters? But I think let's stick to our guns. Maybe we were right.
I hope so. But all remains to be seen. And no doubt we'll be having a wrap-up episode next week after the final episode.
Next week, and we'll have a proper Taking Hugh for Granted podcast on it, which if you haven't listened already to Taking Hugh for Granted, we watch the whole thing and we ask ourselves at the end, was it good, was it bad, was it taking Hugh for granted or not? And I don't know, I genuinely, even that question for me is yet to be answered. I think this next episode is so important as to whether I come away and people go, should I watch The Undoing? And I'll go, no, watch The Queen's Gambit, or yes, tell The Queen's Gambit to fuck off. It's one of the two. It really
thanks
is
for that ending, Fort Diggs.
Exactly. Fantastic. Is there anything else on the agenda for Hugh's News, or is that meeting adjourned?
I think that's meeting adjourned. And
Fantastic.
We'll be back. I guess, if this is the first time listening to our show, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. You can find us by Gmail. Send us an email at takinghughforgranted@gmail.com.
Fantastic.
But for now, I guess that's the end of this edition of Hugh's News.
Thank you so much for watching and listening, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.
This is the end of Hughes News. We hope you feel very Hughes News.